Welcome back. This is Module 3, How the Mind and Body Communicate. Lesson 3.1, Thoughts Leave Imprints. Our thoughts are what creates our reality, but you can't receive what you're wanting and asking for if your mind and body aren't in harmony. The body listens closely to what we repeat, especially under stress. This is why it's imperative that we maintain control over our thoughts. Our subconscious mind is directly connected to the nervous system. Its job is to support and swoop in like a superhero when the conscious mind is beginning to spiral again. The more you practice, the more notes the subconscious mind is taking. Little by little, you're going to begin to notice that you're catching the stress trigger and settling it with very little effort because the subconscious mind is now on autopilot, kicking in right on time. This alone decreases our cognitive load tremendously because now that it's programmed, it runs without needing direction from you, meaning just you don't have to consciously tell yourself that anymore. It's already programmed. So now you can focus on other things, more important things, other areas in your life. You handled that part. Now you can move on and focus on, whatever other area it is that needs focus in your particular life. Um, so you can now focus on other things with more trust, not having to worry about the mental support because it's already there and ready. Our thoughts, negative or positive, are what are continuously reprogramming the subconscious mind. We have both a conscious and subconscious mind, both with very important jobs when it comes to our nervous system and feeling safe in the body. Our conscious mind is the driver, the one that's responsible for initial thoughts, action, ideas, plans, and it loves to overthink, trying to predict and protect. Our subconscious mind is there as a strong and steady support for whatever the conscious mind is thinking and repeating, regardless on if it's empowering or self-destructing and self-limiting. If the conscious mind says it's so, the subconscious mind agrees. So, whatever it is that you're repeating to yourself, telling yourself, believing yourself, is absolutely what you're training your subconscious mind to back up. So, if you're constantly telling yourself that you're not worth it, you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, your subconscious mind is sitting right there going, yeah, you're right. Yep, I've heard this enough. You're right. You must be right. If you keep telling me this and this is what it is, then yeah, you're right. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. And that's such a lie. That is the biggest lie. And that's a lie that you've told yourself that now your subconscious is believing. We've all done it. I did it. My word, I was so self destructive before, prior years ago. Oh my gosh. The way I talked to myself should have been illegal. It was terrible. I wouldn't even look in the mirror. So, and that was when I was in my best shape, so it had nothing to do with the physical. So, but the point is that I was telling myself all of these things all along, and my subconscious was believing it and backing it up. So I didn't know any different. I started learning all this stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, I can actually change that. So that's what we want. We want to have the knowledge that we can change it. It doesn't have to be that way. And it's not that certain people can do it and certain people can't, because everybody can. It just takes a certain level of commitment, um, repetition, focus, things like that. Um, so the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, they work together. And a lot of times, you'll hear people compare the conscious mind to being like the masculine. We all have masculine and feminine energy inside. And so the masculine is the conscious mind that's calling the shots, the one that's trying to protect, the one that's out there doing what it needs to do. While the feminine energy is backing up, I mean, the masculine, I was going to say her man, but we all have masculine and feminine energy. So it's not gender specific, but the subconscious is there to back up the masculine. The feminine is there to back up the masculine is what I'm trying to say. Conscious, subconscious mind. So, we are in total control over our conscious mind and its colorful way of making us spiral, although most times it doesn't feel like it. Just like anything else, the conscious mind needs empathy, patience, and repetition to begin automatically thinking more positively. When we are rewiring the brain, we have to consciously repeat more positive thoughts on a regular basis, kind of like training wheels on a bike, until you're on a roll. One day you won't need the reminders anymore, and your conscious mind will be well programmed to find the most positive outcomes no matter the situation. And your subconscious mind will be right there backing it up with full trust and belief. This translates over to the body as safety. Because again, once that's convinced that it's safe, your body then starts to relax. So it's one big system. One signals to another, signals to another. Um, so when we are constantly focused on the negative, our brain will continue to look for more negative. When we're focused on the positive, our brains will begin to look for more positivity. Working on one without the other, only mindset or only regulation, will result in an imbalance, leaving holes along the way that are still filled with triggers that are going to eventually pop up and disrupt the nervous system. Until it's balanced, we continue to feel stuck. Handling one without the other will not bring forth sustainable long term results and will keep you in the same loop, wondering why you aren't experiencing the relief that you were expecting. So be very, very mindful, and you have to be patient with yourself. And, we're going to go over inner dialogue and the ways that you can change your inner dialogue, to help, kind of be more empathetic and caring towards yourself and loving towards yourself because you deserve it the most. You don't need it from any outside source. You don't need it from a man, from a woman, from an animal, a situation, an environment. You don't need it from anywhere but yourself. So that's where we're going here. Go to the next page, which is super fun. So on this page, it's how the conscious and subconscious mind work together. Whoa, tongue twister. So I put together a couple little diagrams here to kind of make a visual of what's going on inside. So you kind of know what's going on. I mean, I'm a very visual person. I'm a very visual learner. So for me, seeing things kind of puts it in perspective for me. So this is on the top left. That's a brain, obviously, with two halves, and our brain is separated in two halves, and there's so much going on both halves. But the conscious mind is on the left side. The subconscious mind is on the right. Now, for me, for some reason, I picture the conscious mind being out front and center and the subconscious mind being the cheerleader in the background supporting. That's how I envision it in my head, even though this is scientifically and anatomically correct. But for me, I envision it. So, take it upon yourself to whatever works for you. That's why I call this whole thing a more than a course. It's more so a blueprint. And that way you can take this and apply it to your life, how it fits for you. There's no, again, like I did mention it prior. There's no cookie cutter way to get through this because everybody's so different. We've all been through different things. So, make sure that you take all of this information and apply it to your life and yourself in a way that's comfortable for you, not in the way that is suggested or, the way that maybe others do it. You have to find your way to do it. And that's key for nervous system regulation. Like it's when it's your way, it's a relaxed way. You're not forced by anything else. So over here on the right, there's a little eyeball there. Excuse me. And the brain. So I'm going to start down at the mindset. Mindset is our lens reporting back to the brain how we feel, whether it's optimistic or pessimistic. So again, our mindset is how we are choosing to look at things. Are we looking at them in a more positive way or are we looking at them in a more negative way? So that's what the mindset is in charge of. The mindset determines which way we're going to look at that, right? And so now the conscious mind is like, all right, cool. This is how we're going to look at it. So the conscious mind is always analyzing and deciding what story it will tell the subconscious mind to record and program in. So depending on your mindset, which is now bringing in which way you're going to look at this, now the conscious mind is going to start to register that and pass that along. This is why I think it's front and back. I don't know. It's easier for me to envision. It's going to pass that along to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is over here busy recording and reprogramming what is being seen, said, and felt So again, the subconscious mind is recording, programming exactly what is being seen, said, and felt. And that's going to translate over into your nervous system. So we have to be mindful. So this is the cool part. So we have, I think it was like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say it was like billions of neurons, right? Hanging out. So the neurons are the cells that receive and send messages from the body to the brain and back to the body again. They communicate using synaptic contacts that send chemical neurotransmitters through those little finger-like feelers that they have to build new neural pathways. So if you look over at our little diagram over here of the neurons, those little finger-like things on the outside are what are communicating to the next one. So they don't actually ever touch, but when the same communication system is being passed through, that's a new neural pathway. And you can create that with your thoughts, with your mind. And so what happens is when you create a new habit or a new way of thinking or whatever it is, they start to communicate with each other, right? They start to put out their little feelers and, things start zapping back and forth between them. And then you do it again. And they're like, okay, cool. All right. Hey, nice to meet you again. Right. Now the neurons are they're becoming buddies. Right. So now you do it again and again and again with repetition. All of a sudden the neurons are like, oh, hell, we're going to be here for a while. We're buddies. And then they all link up and make a new neural pathway. Not any neural pathway, but the neural pathway that's going to be supportive of your journey and of your emotions and your mental health. So it's super, super important. To make sure that you're feeding those little neurons exactly what they need to create the pathway that's going to be most supportive. And what happens is as you're creating the new pathways, the old pathways are being used less and less and less. And so they begin to diminish. And so now you have the new empowered, strong ones that now replaced the ones that were centered around fear, worry, anxiety, depression, and the ones that wanted to continuously tell the subconscious to look for that. So we're kind of shutting that out and look, this is the way we're going to do now. But that takes a little while. It takes repetition. Like I said, it's like going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you work out, you don't see results in a week. You go and you work out, you don't see results in 2 weeks. You go, you work out, you're eating right, but all of a sudden, you start to notice that you're feeling better, right? And then once you start to feel better, eventually you're going to start to see the external results. And that's how this is. You have to be willing to put in the work without seeing the results at first. You have to. You have to understand that the work that you're putting in is not being wasted. Even if it feels like you're not going anywhere, it's not being wasted. So I wanted to make that very clear. As you go along, there are going to be times where you feel like this is not working. This isn't working for me. I'm wasting my time. This is stupid. This feels silly. This feels delusional. Those things are going to happen and it's totally normal. I just want you to know that. Like, it's absolutely normal. But key is being resilient and persistent and pushing through that to get to the other side. So, like I said, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because, that's through the process. If you keep resorting back to what's comfortable, it's going to be back to your old ways. So now we're striving to become comfortable in our way, but we have to be uncomfortable with the change, as it goes along. Uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean negative. And, a lot of us will take certain words and attach a negative response or feeling, emotion to it. So we don't want to do that. We want to keep it pretty neutral. So hang on. My cat is stuck on the screen. Okay, crisis avoided. Cat is out of the screen. So they're the messengers that are passing along the message. If you want the message to be clear, you need to feed it properly. These pathways will be supportive of whatever you are feeding it through your thoughts and mindset. Repetition strengthens the synaptic communication, causing more frequent and steady signals being sent from one neuron to another. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's natural ability to reorganize itself and completely rewire itself through forming new neural connections. Studies have shown that plasticity continues throughout our lifespan, supporting learning, memory, and recovery from injury, trauma, or disease. And that's incredible because a lot of people will tell you that, plasticity cuts off at a certain point in your injury, certain age, certain whatever their limits are. But that's just what it is. That's their limit. That's their opinion on their limit. You don't have a limit. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep it pushing forward. Because no matter the situation, it's always right there and ready. And this kind of work won't cure and take away everything. But when you have this kind of education on the system and how things are working, and you fully understand that this is not time based. This is something that's ongoing, and you can continue to build new neural pathways your entire life that are completely supportive. How beautiful is that? You're creating your own stability in your way, not in a way that you have to get used to, but in your own way. So it's super fun. But over here on the left, I have our little brains, right? So the idea or thought your conscious mind is relaying causes one of two reactions in the subconscious mind. So up top here, you see your little conscious mind with the idea, right? It's like, hey, I got an idea. So your subconscious mind's job is to have a reaction where you're either going to doubt it and go, yeah, I don't know about that. We're not going to do that because, again, it's trying to protect you. It's fear. It's, thinking something bad's going to happen. Or it can support you and go, hell yeah, let's do it. And that's what we want, because a supportive mind is a healthy and peaceful mind. And that's what we're going for here. That's the point of this whole thing, is so that you don't live in turmoil in your head for the rest of your life. And our lives are all different. Sometimes we have short lives, sometimes we have long lives, but regardless, you don't want to spend the rest of your life in a miserable and scared and fearful mindset. So let's move to the next page, which is our facts. So I'm just going to briefly go over our facts, and then we're going to move on to lesson 3.2. So here's our facts. Stress often shows up physically. So as we went over, excuse me, stress in the body, pain, digestive system, sleep disruption, achy joints, things like that. The body responds to intentional action, not just words. And so that brings us back to, you can tell yourself all day long these things, but unless you're actually doing it and proving it to your body, it's not going to stick. So the words, just saying it isn't going to work. You have to actually put the action with the words in order to convince and train your subconscious mind that this is exactly what's going on and that this is fact. So repeated thoughts, good or bad, influence tension and or ease. So depends on which way you're going with it. So depending on whether you're repeating positive things, encouraging things, empowering things, or negative and self-limiting things, it's going to reflect in your body. So, again, more positive, more soft and loose. Negative is going to be more rigid and uncomfortable. So awareness and coherence begins the shift. You cannot change something without being fully aware of it. And I can't say how proud I am for you, or of you, for being here, because if you made the decision to work on this and apply this knowledge to your life, you're aware. You're aware of what needs to change, and you're aware of where you want to be. You're here to learn the system, and you can't use the system if you don't know how to use it, or you're not educated at all on it. And most of us are not. I was not. Most of my life, I had no idea. So I just kind of went along, and I wasn't aware at all. I had no self awareness. It was like I was living outside of my body for everything and everyone else. So I didn't realize that I needed such a big change. So you don't realize it. So if you're here, And this is what you're doing. You're aware already. And I'm so proud of you for that because it's not easy. Definitely not easy. So, but it's one of the most beautiful challenges you'll ever go through in your life. So, and I promise that when you get to the other side and you start applying these things to your life and you start seeing the changes in your life, you're going to be like, yes, yes, this is what I wanted. And then it's time to celebrate. So that's exciting. So let's go to the next page, which is lesson 3.2. So, lesson 3.2, the body can lead. Most times, the body needs the attention and care before beliefs can change and soften. As we've gone over previously, you can try to change your mindset and to an extent, maybe make some progress. But if your body is still signaling that it's dysregulated, no matter what you attempt to tell yourself, it won't land. In this lesson, I'm going to go over some ways to ground yourself, begin to relax internally, and some easy techniques that will naturally quiet the noise and remind your body that you're safe. And also that you can trust yourself to guide yourself to inner safety. That's so important. That's a self trust isn't just one little thing. I mean, to actually trust yourself to get yourself where you're trying to go, like that's huge. And it's beautiful. So here's a couple little facts is regulation works from the bottom up, from the inside out, right? So beliefs often loosen when the body settles. When the body feels calm and safe, the realizations of your false beliefs become clear. And that's the absolute truth. As you go through this, you're going to look back at the way that you used to think of things, the way you used to see yourself, and see that that was absolute bullshit. It was never true. And it was literally what you told yourself and programmed in your own mind. We don't even know that we're doing it, you know? Because again, there's 1 billion thoughts going through your brain. So you don't realize that you're even doing it. But so you don't need to force new thoughts. As you work your way through, finding gratitude will naturally bring about new healthy thoughts. So again, being, appreciating where you are in your journey, making sure you're recognizing that. And just being grateful for everything, being grateful for the tiniest micro things that you can find to be grateful. And you don't have to make it up, just things that you're genuinely grateful for. A lot of people will sit down and they're like, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for, and those are all great things to be grateful for. Don't discount those. There's also a lot of other teeny tiny things to be grateful for. The fact that you have, the ability to wake up every day. The fact that you have the ability to put food in your mouth every day. There's just many things, tiny things. Sometimes it's just as small as, wow, I'm super grateful that I can look out and see that the way that the sun is hitting that tree and the shadow that it's making. You know what I mean? Little tiny things. So you start to pick that up. So effective nervous system regulation tips and techniques. So these are just some of the ways. There's a million different ways that work, but these are just some different ways that I like to use, and different ways that were suggested to me that I know absolutely work. So this is just my little brief. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm going to go over it with you. So meditation. So meditation is something that used to be very confusing to me, because I could never be the one to sit down, close my eyes, crisscross my legs, and hum my way to any kind of profound findings. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I would try and try and try. And, I never gave up. But then I realized, like, it's not meditation. So I put in here, find a way that's comfortable for you. Meditation is about being coherent in the moment to find quiet from the outside noise. For example, I like to meditate while coloring, sitting in nature, or while listening to music. So I found that for me personally, instead of sitting and doing it the traditional way that you see people do, for me it was while I was doing things, while I was sometimes even driving when I was driving a lot, I just, that's how I meditate. And the most brilliant things come to my mind when I allow myself to do things my way. So just because other people say that you have to sit like this lady up here in the left hand corner, finger hands out and eyes closed and all that. No, I do my best meditation while I'm doing other things. So again, music helps me meditate. It lets me get into a deeper state of thought and center myself. So it's different for everybody. Again, don't put caps on your limit. Just because somebody else says it's this way doesn't mean that there's not 1 billion other ways that you can do that. So do it your way. Somatic, somatic meaning of the body. Somatic movement focuses on how you're feeling in the body as you move. Intentional movements restores balance within. Examples of that include breath work, yoga, Pilates, dance. It's just the simple movement, even going for walks, just moving your body, whatever it takes, just move your body. Something that I like to do that really helps when my stress builds up. And it's something that my speech therapist taught me. And I learned it to let go of like the stress that I have immediately in my body. And what I do is put my hands down at my sides and then shake my hands out. Like there's something absolutely disgusting on them, shake them out. Shake them out, and that shakes all the stress out and it kind of loosens things up. So that's another way to move your body. I tried it a couple times and it really works for me. But I saw on TikTok there was this man and he was teaching how to release it from your body. And he kind of had the same thing going, but he would twist his torso and let his arms just flop back and forth. Don't hold them out straight out like a helicopter, but flapping them back and forth as his torso turned. And so that was another way to release it. So there are many different ways that you can absolutely get your body moving to release some of that stress and relax your body. So grounding in nature restores our energy through connection. Our bodies are so, the human body and the way that the system, the nervous system, the nerves in the system mirrors that of trees and plants. And so, and being that we are energetic beings and they have their own energetic system going on, when we go and we take our socks off, or even if you're not comfortable with that, because some people do have sensory issues, you can go out and you can put your hands down on the grass, not concrete or anything like that. You want to make direct contact with the earth, and there will be an energy exchange. And a lot of times that brings you back to center. When you're sitting and you're not worrying about anything but envisioning, letting go of your negativity and that energetic force, bringing that positive energy back in, replenishing, refilling your battery, allowing you to have that minute to kind of think. It's beautiful. So grounding yourself doesn't have to be something huge. If you don't have access to outside, some of us with disabilities don't have access to just go outside and ground. So something that I really enjoy because it still does have a root system is houseplants. I absolutely love having my houseplants around. I touch their leaves. I exchange energy with them. I talk to them. I, nurture them. So there's different ways that you can ground, and there's grounding yourself and grounding in nature is two different things, although it's all in the same. There are many ways to ground yourself. Your body scans is one. Stopping and taking that pause and kind of listening to yourself, taking a minute to yourself, that's also grounding. So there's many different ways to ground yourself. But if you prefer to ground in nature and touch trees and grass and everything like I do, head outside, get that done. If you're not able to physically go outside, get yourself some house plants or one house plant, and that will also help you. So slowing down everything we do. Often we get in the habit of rushing through everything we do. Slow down and enjoy the moment. That's so important. Take the deep breath. Remind yourself that there's no rush. You don't have to do it. There's nothing coming. There's nobody coming. You're fine. So, and it sounds crazy, but you literally have to tell yourself that. I tell myself that still to this day. And I am 3 years out from, the abuse that I endured between my marriage and my relationship, the narcissistic relationship following, So I was always on the move, always trying to get things done to avoid being in trouble or getting yelled at or anything else. And so now it's like, okay, Beck, you can take a breath. They're not coming. It's not coming for you. You don't have to rush through eating. You don't have to go and do those dishes at this moment. So, just slow down the process. Coloring or drawing is a great way to be in the moment and let your creative energy flow. For example, this is something that I absolutely love to do. And I do it to bring myself center and to really listen to whatever it is that my natural state wants to do. So I close my eyes, and sometimes I have a pen, marker, whatever in my hand, and I just close them and I just allow my hand to freely. I don't have a vision in my head of what I'm drawing. I just let my hand freely draw what it wants to draw. And when I open my eyes, there's this incredible pattern. And then I just take my time to color it in, however it calls to me at the moment. You know, sometimes I just look at it and I'm like, oh, wow, that color would look pretty there. And I color it in. Sometimes it ends up looking like, a kaleidoscope of colors. And sometimes it ends up being something pretty cool. So, I mean, it's all pretty cool, but it's just allowing your natural state to kind of have its creativity, and it brings you center to the moment. So that's a beautiful way also. Another way to kind of regulate yourself, bring yourself back center, is to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in for a count of 5 and exhale for a count of 5. So, when I was being taught this through speech therapy, one of the issues I was having is when I would take a too big of a breath in, I would become lightheaded and dizzy. So what she had me do was, shorten the seconds of the breath in and the breath out until you work your way back up. So if you can't do 5 seconds, do 3 seconds. If you can't do 3 seconds, do 2 seconds. Do whatever. Again, this is a blueprint. You have to apply this to what works for you. And again, as long as you're moving forward, you're good to go. So relax your jaw, do a body scan, and notice how your body feels and relax your body. So, taking that deep breath, letting it out, doing your little scan, loosening up your body is going to really help your body kind of remind your brain that you're okay. Yeah. Find or get back into hobbies that you enjoy. So some of us with disabilities, it's hard to do the hobbies that we once did. So we have to find kind of new hobbies that we can do. For example, I love kayaking. I absolutely love it. Right now, I can't physically lift the kayak yet to put it into a vehicle, and then I get exhausted super easy. So I'm still working up to, going out kayaking um, and doing that without the fear of becoming exhausted and not being able to make it back in, or, a headache striking, or whatever the case may be for me. So sometimes you can't jump right back into your hobbies, but it's healthy to find new hobbies, just find something else that you like to do. It's going to be different for everybody. So, down here in the corner, I have vibration plates. So for my TBI people, my brain injury people, you're going to want to be you're going to have to use your discernment on this one. If you have a doctor, talk to your doctor. I was able to use my discernment. I know where I am in my healing. But the vibration plate is absolutely wonderful for shaking the stress out. It loosens your body. I do it in the first thing in the morning, 10 minutes. Sometimes, depending on how the day is flowing, I'll do it in the middle of the day, 10 minutes. And then before I go to bed at night, I sit on the edge of my bed. I have a platform bed. You can stand on it. I prefer to sit most of the time because, I'm off balance a lot of times. And so it's easier just to kind of sit down and let it shake your body out. And so that's an incredible way also. But again, for my TBI people, you've got to be super careful. Don't overdo it. Start at the lowest setting. And then what I have found is that if I position my body on it different ways, it doesn't jostle my brain. Do you know what I mean? And then if I'm on it, because every day is different and symptomatic, in symptomatic severity for me. So if I hop on it and it gets to a point where I feel, and I mean any disruption or pain, I stop. And I get off and I find something else to do. But then there are days where that works perfectly fine for me. Those of you without brain injuries, fantastic. Hop on the vibration plate. They have bigger ones, smaller ones. Um, you can sit on them, you can kneel on them, you can do exercises on them. You can, if you rest your elbows on there, it shakes out your shoulders. Like there's just so many benefits to the vibration plate as far as getting your body moving, the somatic movement, shaking the stress out. So, um, so that wraps up our body can lead lesson 3.2. And I hope that that gave you, a few good ideas. Feel free to explore, other ways of grounding that may work for you. There's millions of people, billions of people in this world, and everybody has a different perspective and different ways of doing things. So, don't take just my information and cap it off there. I learned from a lot of incredible people along the way. So make sure that you're always expanding and getting new ideas and trying new things, because there's no cookie cutter here. It's individual. Nothing's going to work the same for me that works for you, that works for the next person. So make sure that you're exploring all of your options, um, to make sure that you find the one that works best for you, and try them all out. Try out different things and see what works. Again, for me with the meditation, I tried probably for a good year. Yeah, and I just, yeah, at least that. And I would sit there and I would try, and man, my mind kept wandering off. I'd get into it and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm center, and then I'm like, oh man, I got to go pull the chicken out for dinner. You know what I mean? Like my mind would wander, and they say to keep pulling it back to center attention. It never worked for me. It works fantastic for other people, some other people, but for me, it didn't work. So I found what worked for me, and I want you to find what works for you. So, all right. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I will see you in module 4.